My mother said I was obligated to call her awful boyfriend Dad, thinking he could replace my father just because he was her new partner. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. My name is not important right now. What matters is what happened, or maybe how fast everything can be taken from you, just when you start to think your life has some shape. I was 13 when everything flipped. One morning, I woke up worrying about a test in science class. That night, my dad was in jail for murder. It started like any other Friday. I had cereal, wore the hoodie with the tiny bleach stain no one but me noticed, and left the house with my backpack a little heavier than usual because I was hiding snacks I didn't want to share. Nothing felt strange. Nothing warned me, until I got pulled out of math class by the assistant principal. She didn't look at me the way teachers usually do. It was the kind of look adults give when someone dies. Her mouth did this tight, stretched smile thing, and her voice had that forced softness that made my stomach twist. She said my mom was waiting in the office and that I needed to get my things. My mom wasn't crying. She was stiff, like she was trying not to fall apart, but the cracks were already showing. Her eyes looked wrong, wet, but not from sadness. More like rage. "He's been arrested," she said before I could ask anything. "There was a fight. A man's dead. Your father. They think he did it." Everything after that felt like trying to breathe underwater. The man who died was some guy in his late 30s. Supposedly, he'd shoved my dad at a bar. Witnesses said my dad hit him and the guy fell and cracked his skull on the corner of a jukebox. It sounded like some stupid, drunken accident. Except no one seemed to believe that. Not the cops, not the news, and apparently not my mom either. By the time we got home, her voice had gone flat, like someone hit a switch and drained all the emotion out of her. "I told him that place was trouble," she muttered as she lit a cigarette on the porch, not even looking at me. "He never listened. She didn't ask how I was doing, didn't hug me, just sat there smoking, blaming him, like she'd been waiting for a reason. That night, I heard her on the phone with someone. I couldn't hear all the words, just enough to know she wasn't talking about lawyers or anything that sounded like helping. It was more like solving a problem by getting rid of it, like she had already moved on. The first time we visited my dad at the jail, I could barely speak. I just stared at him behind the glass. He looked tired, bruised, like he hadn't slept in days. But his voice was calm when he finally said something. "They're lying," he told me. "You believe me, don't you?" I nodded so fast it made my head hurt. Because I did. Because I still do. I don't care what the cameras showed or what the bartender claimed. My dad had a temper, but he wasn't a killer. He was the kind of person who fixed a neighbor's car for free just because they didn't have the money. He made pancakes every Sunday, even when he worked 6 days straight. He always let me win at checkers until I was old enough to start beating him for real. He wasn't a monster, but that's what they said in the articles I wasn't supposed to read. That he'd lost control. That he'd been drunk. That there had been shouting and threats before the man hit the ground. My mom read those articles too, but instead of getting angry, she just got busy. First, it was rearranging furniture, then throwing out things that reminded her of him. Then she started dressing different, laughing louder. Within 2 weeks, there was a man at our dinner table. He was just a friend, she said at first. But I wasn't stupid. He was too comfortable. He knew where the forks were. He acted like he lived there. By the end of the month, he was staying over, all the time. He was taller than my dad, fitter, had this stupid, confident walk like he thought the world owed him something. He'd always call me kiddo or ruffle my hair even after I told him to stop. He laughed too loud at his own jokes and always stared too long when I entered a room. I tried to ignore him. I stayed in my room, headphones in, eyes on my schoolwork, waiting for things to go back to normal, waiting for my dad's name to be cleared, waiting for someone to realize the truth. But then my mom sat me down one night after dinner. She was wearing makeup even though we hadn't gone anywhere. "You need to start calling him Dad," she said like it was a rule. "It's confusing when you don't." I blinked at her. "He's not my dad." She inhaled sharply like I'd slapped her. "Your father made his choices," she said. "We're a family now. You will show respect." I didn't say anything. I just stood up and left the table. She didn't stop me. That night, I cried so hard into my pillow I thought I'd choke on it. Not just because I missed my dad or because I hated the way the new guy walked around our house like he owned it. It was something deeper. Like I was slowly being erased, one rule at a time. They moved his things out of the garage the next day, replaced his tools with gym equipment, started parking their car in the driveway. They were building a life, over his grave almost. like they wanted to bury him before he was even convicted. And all I could do was watch, because I was just 13, and no one wanted to hear what I had to say. But I was watching and remembering, and even if they thought I was small or quiet or broken, they were going to regret underestimating me. The first time he called me princess, I felt something shift in my stomach, like when you eat something bad and know immediately it's going to come back up later. My mom laughed when he said it. She thought it was cute. I pretended I didn't hear. I started keeping my door locked, which only lasted 3 days before she told him to take the lock off completely, for safety reasons. The day it was removed, he leaned against the doorframe and said, "No secrets in this house, right?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. It never did. I tried to avoid being home as much as I could, but there's only so many places a 13-year-old can go without raising suspicion. I spent extra time at the library pretending to study, walked around the neighborhood until the streetlights came on, sat in the back corner of the frozen foods aisle at the market reading nutrition labels just to avoid walking through our front door. When I did come home, he always found a reason to talk to me, to get close. He'd accidentally brush my shoulder in the hallway, forget to knock before walking into the bathroom, say things like, "You're growing up fast," with this low tone that made my skin itch. The worst part? My mom didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't want to see it. I told her once, not everything, just that he made me uncomfortable, that he stared too long, that he said things that felt wrong. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "You don't like anyone near me but your father," she said, folding towels like nothing was happening. That's not new. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her until she saw me, really saw me. Instead, I just said, "He makes my skin crawl." She froze, her hands pressing down on the towel like she was smoothing out something more than fabric. "Watch your mouth," she snapped. "He's the only reason we're not drowning right now. Be grateful." That night, I shoved a chair under my doorknob even though it wouldn't do much. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling and listened for footsteps. 2 days later, I came home from school to find my bed moved, my clothes reorganized, and my journals opened on the desk. He smiled when I saw him in the kitchen. Tidied up a bit. "You're not great at keeping things clean, kiddo." I didn't say a word. I just walked straight to my room, locked myself in the bathroom, and threw up. I didn't eat dinner that night. He knocked on my door around 10. Soft knocks, too soft. Then he whispered, "You know, you should try being nicer to me. I'm not going anywhere." I waited until I heard him walk away. Then I pulled out my science book, cut a small slit in the inside of the back cover, and tucked the letter I'd written to my dad inside it. It wasn't long, just a page. But I needed to feel like someone out there still saw me. I mailed it the next morning from a box 3 blocks away, using coins from the bottom of my backpack. I didn't know if it would even get to him, but it felt like breathing for the first time in days. 3 weeks later, I got a letter back. It was hidden in an envelope labeled Educational Program Notice, sent from a literacy volunteer center at the prison. Smart. My mom didn't even open it. Inside was a folded page that smelled faintly like the soap my dad used to keep in his truck. The words weren't long, but they were sharp and clear. "I don't trust him either," he wrote. "Keep your head down. Don't let them know you're smarter than they think." I read that line 5 times. That's when it hit me. My dad knew something. He didn't say exactly what, but the way he wrote it, the way the letters were tight and deliberate. He was trying to tell me something without saying it outright. He was afraid the letters might be read, but he was giving me a clue. I started writing back. Small, careful notes hidden inside homework books. I told him little things, what I saw, what I felt, what he did when mom wasn't around. In return, dad sent me calm instructions in cryptic lines. Stuff like, "Pay attention to what he hides," or "Not everyone who smiles is your friend." I never mentioned the worst things. Not yet. But I think he could tell. One afternoon, I found the man in my room again. This time, he didn't even bother with an excuse. He was sitting on the edge of my bed, holding one of my letters. He didn't look angry. He looked amused. "I wondered what you were hiding in those books," he said, waving the page like a prize. "Thought you were sneaking notes to some little boyfriend. Turns out you're just still hung up on your criminal daddy." I tried to grab the letter, but he stood up fast and stepped back, his voice dropping. "You think you're smart," he said, "but I see everything, and if you keep trying to outsmart me, you're gonna regret it." That was the first time he grabbed my wrist. Just for a second, just tight enough to leave a mark. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I waited until he let go. Then I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at the red imprint on my skin. When I came out, my bookshelf had been pulled apart. All my letters were gone. He didn't just want to scare me. He wanted me silent, powerless, alone. But he made one mistake. He underestimated what I could do without saying a word. From that day on, I stopped reacting. That's what he wanted. Fear, resistance, anything that gave him the feeling of control. I gave him silence instead. No eye contact, no flinching, just blankness. Inside, I was burning. He thought destroying the letters would be the end of it. What he didn't know was that I had already copied them. Everyone. In pencil, on loose pages, tucked inside the lining of my backpack behind a torn zipper flap. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to hold on to. I started reading between my dad's lines more carefully. That's when I found it. A sentence at the end of one letter, written crookedly along the bottom edge of the page, almost invisible unless you unfolded it completely. It said, "If she was with him before the arrest, check the attic." My hands trembled when I read it. I didn't know what I was looking for or how he'd even know something was there, but it was the first time I felt like I had a direction, a way to fight back. That weekend, they both went out. "Just dinner," my mom said, in that too cheerful voice she used when she was trying to convince herself of something. As soon as the car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed a chair and pushed it under the attic hatch in the hallway. It creaked as I opened it, dust falling like powder. I pulled myself up fast, coughing from the stale air. The attic was cramped and low, boxes piled in every corner. Holiday stuff, old clothes, forgotten things. I searched frantically, checking labels, digging behind containers until my fingers hit something soft. A notebook wrapped in a grocery bag, shoved into a gap behind the insulation. The first page was dated 3 months before my dad's arrest. "I think she's cheating." I read every word. My dad had written about suspicions he never shared. How she'd been disappearing for hours, coming home with perfume that wasn't hers. He'd followed her once, saw her at a gas station with a man who drove a dark gray SUV. The same kind the new guy now parked in our driveway. He didn't have proof, just gut instinct and half-finished sentences. But toward the last pages, his notes got darker. He knows I'm onto him. She doesn't see it. Or maybe she does. I took pictures of every page with my phone. My hands were shaking so badly that some of them came out blurry, but I didn't stop. I needed it all. My knees ached from crouching, but I kept snapping photo after photo until the last entry. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. And it wasn't just a fight. I heard the front door slam while I was still up there. Panic hit me like a wave. I shoved the notebook back, pulled the attic hatch shut, and ran to my room just in time to sit on the bed, pretending to scroll through my phone. He walked by my door a minute later. Paused. I didn't look up. That night, I backed up the photos to a hidden folder on an old device I hadn't used in months. Just in case. The next day, I found the attic hatch hanging half open when I got home. My stomach dropped. I knew he'd gone up there. I didn't know if he found the notebook, but I knew he was looking. Things got worse fast. He started waking me up early, by accident, walking too loudly past my room, opening the fridge and slamming it shut, asking creepy questions when Mom wasn't around, like whether I had a boyfriend or ever kissed a boy. Then, the door to my room disappeared. I came home from school one afternoon and it was just gone. The hinges, the knob, the whole thing. In its place was a clean frame and a smug smile on his face. "Open space builds trust," he said, arms crossed. My mom didn't say anything. She didn't look at me at all. That night I changed clothes in the closet, knees against my chest, heart pounding. 2 days later, he said we were going on a family weekend, to a cabin, out by the lake. My mom seemed thrilled. She called it a chance to reset. I knew exactly what it was. Isolation. Control. No neighbors. No escape. We left Friday afternoon. The cabin was small, old, surrounded by pine trees that blocked most of the sun. There was no cell service, no Wi-Fi, one bathroom, and one bed for them. He showed me my room, which was just a converted storage closet with a cot and a small window too high to reach. The first night, I locked the window with a chair under it. The second night, he came into the room after my mom fell asleep. He closed the door slowly, like he wanted me to hear the sound. Like he wanted me to know there was no one coming. I froze. He leaned against the wall, said my name, soft. "You really think your dad can save you?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You're not a kid anymore. Maybe it's time you stop pretending you don't understand how this works." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I grabbed the lamp next to the cot and held it tight. He smiled, like it was funny. Then he backed away. "Sooner or later, you'll figure out fighting only makes things worse." The door clicked shut behind him. I sat on the floor until the sun came up. When we got back home, I didn't go to school. I couldn't. I couldn't sit in a room full of people pretending like my skin didn't feel scorched from the inside out. That afternoon, my mom found the letters I'd hidden again. The new ones. She burned them in the sink. Didn't even look at me while she did it. Just said, "You brought this on yourself." Then she turned and told him to take care of the door. Again. That night, I slept with my shoes on, because I knew it was only a matter of time. And next time, I might not make it out. The morning after she burned the letters, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or argue or even speak. Something inside me had snapped, but not the way she wanted. It wasn't fear anymore. It was calculation, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I waited 2 days, pretending to be hollow. I kept my head down, nodded when spoken to, stayed quiet at dinner. He watched me like a predator waiting for a twitch, but I gave him nothing. That Sunday, just after lunch, they both went out to look at furniture for the new home office she wanted him to have. I had an hour, maybe 2 if I was lucky. I grabbed the chair from the hallway, pushed it under the attic hatch again, and climbed up fast, remembering the exact box from last time. The notebook was still there, but something was different. The grocery bag had been shifted. There were fresh creases, like someone had pulled it out and shoved it back quickly. He'd found it, but he hadn't destroyed it. That was his mistake. I slid it out and flipped past the early pages I'd already photographed. I didn't need the part where my dad suspected the affair. I needed more. Something concrete. Something dangerous. A folded envelope was tucked between 2 pages I hadn't reached before. It was labeled only with a date, 2 weeks before the night of the bar incident. Inside was a printed receipt from a pawn shop in another county. It showed the sale of a men's gold chain and a set of tools. Both items I remembered my dad swearing he never sold. Items he thought had been stolen when he came home one night and found the garage door wide open. Under the receipt, a sticky note in his handwriting. "Didn't pawn these. She had the car that day. He was here." The weight in my chest grew heavier. I turned the page. Saw his SUV again, parked 3 blocks away. Same plates. She says it's her coworker. Then why was she holding his hand? Then I confronted her. She said I was crazy. Then I got the anonymous tip. Someone called saying I had a record at Murphy's. I've never even been there before. He's planning something. I know it. I kept reading. The entries grew more erratic, like he was panicking. She thinks I'm losing it. I can't sleep. He's in her phone now under a fake name. I saw the messages. She said he suspects. Be careful. This isn't just cheating. It's something else. Something worse. My breath caught when I saw the final page, dated the day before his arrest. She asked me to go to Murphy's bar, said she wanted to talk in public. He'll be there. I know it. I'm not drinking tonight. I want to catch him slipping. If anything happens to me, it wasn't random. There was a small map drawn under that line. A rough sketch of the bar's layout. 2 exits. Bathroom in the back. Marked with an X next to a note. He likes to pick fights. Watch the cameras. I stared at that page for a long time. It wasn't just paranoia. My dad had known, or at least feared, that something was being planned. That he might be set up. And he'd left that notebook in the one place she'd never look. Only I had found it. I took my phone and photographed every page I hadn't captured before, this time more carefully. Flash off. Angles tight. No blur. When I was done, I wrapped it all back and shoved the box deeper behind the insulation. Then I eased the attic hatch closed and moved the chair back like nothing happened. They got home 20 minutes later. He asked what I'd done that day. I said, studied. He smiled like he didn't believe me, but didn't press. My mom said she wanted to repaint my room soon. Said it would help me move forward. I nodded. That night, I opened a private cloud account and uploaded every photo. Then I copied the photos onto a cheap USB stick I'd found in the junk drawer and taped it to the underside of my dresser. The next day, he almost caught me. I was in the attic again, just for a minute, trying to grab a second envelope I'd missed the first time. I heard the front door open, hours before they were supposed to return. His footsteps echoed down the hall. My stomach flipped. I shut the box, slid back to the hatch, and listened. He was in the kitchen. I had 20 seconds, maybe less. I climbed down as quietly as I could, tiptoed to the laundry room, and pretended I'd been folding towels. He never saw me come down, but he stood in the hallway for a long time, looking up at the ceiling. That night, he stormed into my room, yanked my backpack off the floor, and dumped everything out. When he didn't find anything, he pulled open my drawers, threw my clothes on the floor, tore my notebooks, smashed my pencil case. My mom came running but didn't stop him. "I know you're hiding something," he hissed. "I'll find it." She just stood there, watching. When he finally stopped, breathing hard, he looked at her and said, "She's too much. I'm calling the school. She needs to be sent away, somewhere strict." She didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that sounded almost tired, she said, "Do whatever you need to." I sat on my bed, surrounded by broken things, and realized I had no protection left. No one here would save me. But I wasn't waiting to be rescued anymore. The notebook changed everything. My dad hadn't just been suspicious. He'd been on the edge of uncovering something real. And now I had that truth in my hands. If I was going to get out of this, I needed help. But not from her. Not from anyone who lived in this house. I needed someone who knew my dad. Someone who still believed in him. Someone who hadn't stopped watching. And I already knew exactly who that was. The moment the attic hatch clicked shut behind me, I didn't breathe. I crouched in the hallway, heart pounding so loud I thought he'd hear it through the walls. His footsteps were still echoing in the kitchen, drawers slamming, cabinets creaking. Too much noise for someone just grabbing a snack. I moved fast, slipping the envelope into my waistband and tiptoeing back to my room. The chair I'd used to climb up was still beneath the attic opening. I dragged it back to the corner where it belonged and threw a hoodie over it. He was halfway down the hall when I closed my door. I pretended to be brushing my hair. He didn't knock. He just stood there, staring. I caught his reflection in the mirror, arms crossed, head tilted slightly, like a predator studying prey. "You go anywhere?" I looked him in the eye and lied. "Just laundry." He watched me for a second longer than necessary, then walked away. I counted every footstep until I heard the TV turn on downstairs. Once the sound was steady, I pulled the envelope back out, sat on the floor, and carefully opened it. Inside was another sheet from my dad's notebook, this one torn at the edges, smudged, rushed. I think he's planning something to frame me. I think she knows. There's a camera at the back of Murphy's. Ask the bartender about the night of the fight. He'll pretend he doesn't remember. But he saw him there. Then in darker ink written later, "The guy I saw her with is the one she's with now. He's dangerous. If he gets in, she'll never get out." He wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about me. I didn't even let myself feel it. I stood up, locked the bathroom door from the inside, and turned the shower on full blast to cover the sound. Then I took out both phones, the one I used every day, and the old one I'd been hiding under the floorboard behind my dresser. I connected to our neighbor's unsecured Wi-Fi, something I'd tested weeks ago just in case. It worked. I uploaded every single image, every notebook page, the pawn receipt, even the note with the bar sketch, to a private folder, encrypted and backed up. Then I emailed it to myself, to a second account I never used, and saved it again on the USB stick. I even took a screenshot of the cloud folder just to prove it existed. When I turned off the water, I sat on the toilet seat and waited, staring at the USB in my hand like it was a heartbeat. I taped it inside the tank's lid under the porcelain. Not perfect, but safer than my drawer. I went back to my room and found him already there. He was sitting on my bed, turning one of my notebooks over in his hands. "You always this jumpy?" he asked, not looking up. "You've been off. I'm tired." He smiled like he didn't believe me. "Let's see what we've got in here," he said, flipping through the pages. Nothing sensitive, just math notes. But I hated that he touched it. When he stood, he dropped it to the floor like garbage. That night, I slept fully dressed again. Hoodie, sneakers, hair in a braid. The USB in the tank wasn't enough. I needed someone else to know. I needed to find someone who'd believe me. And fast. But I didn't get the chance. The next morning, he was already waiting in the kitchen when I came down. "Your mom and I talked," he said, buttering toast like we were friends. "You're clearly struggling, acting out. She's worried, so we made a decision." I didn't sit. "You're gonna go away for a bit, just until you're back on track. A school with structure, rules, somewhere quiet." My stomach dropped. He was smiling too much, too controlled. "An internato?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He nodded slowly. "Remote. No distractions. No phones." He was sending me away. Not because I was unstable, because I was close. My mom came in, holding a brochure. She didn't meet my eyes. "I went to a place like this when I was your age," she said. "It helped me grow up." I stared at her. She didn't flinch. "You already applied?" I asked. She said nothing. The brochure slid onto the table. "Classes start next month," he added. "But we're going to visit early. Let you get settled." I couldn't breathe. My voice came out flat. "How far is it?" 2 states over. Beautiful mountain campus. No visitors the first 6 weeks, but after that, I didn't hear the rest. I went back upstairs. In the hallway, I paused outside the attic. He'd searched it, I was sure of it. But he hadn't found the USB, the backups, the photos, and he hadn't stopped me yet. But he would. The rest of the day, I kept my eyes down. I didn't ask questions, I didn't argue. I waited until he went to the store. Then I went into my mom's room. Her nightstand drawer was full of junk. Receipts, old lipsticks, prescription bottles. But tucked in the back was her phone. I took it. Downstairs, I airdropped 2 key images from my old phone. The bar sketch and the note about the camera. Just those 2. I deleted the transfer history, then I put it back exactly where I found it. She would see them eventually. I didn't expect her to believe me, but a seed would be planted. I needed that. When he came back, he brought home fast food, tried to hand me a milkshake. I said I wasn't hungry. That night, he searched my room again. Not carefully, aggressively. He flipped my mattress, dumped out every drawer, even pulled my shoes apart. When he found nothing, he laughed under his breath like he'd won. "You really think you're clever," he said, stepping closer. I didn't move. "I'm not scared of you," I said, voice low. He leaned in, his breath sour with soda and spite. "You should be." When he left, I cleaned up the mess, heart steady. I had one chance left. The man I needed was someone my dad used to talk about, his best friend since high school. The one who came to my birthday even when he moved an hour away. He'd stopped visiting after the arrest, probably assuming the worst. But I remembered where he lived. I had the address written in an old card from 2 years ago, still tucked in the back of my closet in a shoebox I hadn't touched. I pulled it out. The envelope was faded, but the return address was still there. The next step was clear. If I wanted to survive, I had to get to him, before they sent me away for good. I waited until Sunday morning, the one day he always left early to work out, and she slept late after too many glasses of wine the night before. I put on my oldest hoodie, the one that didn't stand out, and walked out the back door like I was just taking out the trash. I didn't bring my main phone, only the old one. No tracker, no apps, just the screenshots, the photos of the journal, and a few emergency numbers. I walked to the nearest bus stop 5 blocks away and got on a route that headed toward the outer edge of the city. I'd memorized it the night before. The bus was half empty, a couple of college kids, a man in a suit eating a sandwich, a woman asleep against the window. It took nearly an hour to get to the neighborhood. I got off 3 stops early and walked the rest of the way, just in case. The address was a small 1-story house with a crooked mailbox and peeling paint on the porch rail. The front yard had a tire swing and a plastic garden gnome tipped on its side. It looked forgotten. I stood on the sidewalk for a full minute before I worked up the nerve to knock. He opened the door wearing a faded t-shirt and pajama pants, holding a mug that said "World's Okayest Uncle." At first, he didn't recognize me. His eyes scanned my face, confused. Then his expression shifted. "I don't have time," I said, voice low. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, looked over my shoulder like he expected someone to be watching. Then he opened the door wider. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old carpet. There were photos on the wall, his daughter, a dog, a group of men fishing. One of them was my dad, younger, smiling, standing shoulder to shoulder with him like brothers. "I shouldn't be here," I said, but I didn't know who else to go to. He put the mug down, rubbed the back of his neck. "I haven't heard from your mom since. She doesn't know I'm here." He nodded slowly. "Your dad's in jail." "I know." "You know what for?" "I know what they say he did. And I know he didn't do it." He looked at me for a long time, then gestured toward the couch. I sat, pulled the phone from my pocket, opened the album. These are photos of a journal he left hidden in our attic. He started writing it months before the arrest. There are entries about my mom, about the guy she's with now. He knew something was wrong. I passed the phone to him. He scrolled through the images in silence, eyes narrowing. "You're saying this guy?" "I'm saying he was with her before the bar, before everything. And I think he's the one who started the fight that night. Maybe more." He handed the phone back, sat down heavily. I knew something didn't make sense. Your dad was hot-headed, sure, but not a killer. Never. I leaned forward. "I need help. He's sending me away. Out of state. Somewhere I won't be able to talk to anyone. I have maybe a week." He rubbed his face, let out a breath. "I know someone," he said finally. "Someone who used to work with private investigators. Not a cop. Quiet. She might be able to look into the bar footage. See if that camera your dad mentioned still exists." I nodded. "Can I send you the files?" He handed me an email address, then looked me straight in the eye. "Are you safe right now?" "No." "Are you in danger?" I nodded once. He looked down, hands clenched together, then stood. All right, he said. Let's get to work. He pulled out a laptop, scribbled notes, asked me about everything. The attic, the letters, the bar, the guy's SUV, the threats. He didn't question me like I was a kid. He listened. Then he pulled out an old phone, powered it on, and handed it to me. Use this from now on. Don't call me from your regular number. Don't text. Just use the secure app I just installed. If anything happens, send me a code word. Radio silence. Got it? Got it. I stood to leave. He walked me to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. I should have checked in on you sooner. You didn't know. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Before I walked away, he stopped me one last time. Hey, he said. The guy your mom's with now. What's his name? I told him. He went still. His eyes sharpened. You sure? Yeah. He stepped back slowly. I know him. Not well, but enough to know your dad hated him. They had history. What kind of history? Bad blood. Something from years back. Your dad said he was poison. That was all he said. I didn't press. I walked back to the bus stop, heart pounding louder than traffic. I wasn't alone anymore, but I was in deeper than I thought. The next morning, I woke up before either of them. I didn't eat breakfast, didn't speak. Just sat at the table pretending to scroll through an app while my mind was racing. The new phone buzzed silently in my hoodie pocket at exactly 9:14 a.m. One message. We got something. Can you talk? I slipped into the laundry room and typed fast. Not safe now. Later. The reply came seconds later. Footage exists. Meet today? I stared at the screen, heart pounding. We'd only started the search 2 days ago. I hadn't expected results this fast. I typed the word we'd agreed on. Library. Meaning we'd meet at the small public branch near my school. I told my mom I had tutoring that afternoon. She barely looked up. I'll pick you up at 5, she said. I'll walk, I replied quickly. I need the air. She just shrugged. At 3:10, I stepped out of the building and turned left, even though the way home was right. I looped through a side street, doubled back, and walked to the far end of the block where the tiny library stood between a dentist's office and an old hardware store. He was already there, sitting on a bench, scrolling his own phone like nothing in the world was wrong. I sat down beside him and took the second phone from my hoodie. I've only got half an hour. That's enough. He handed me a manila folder. Inside were 3 printed stills from a video feed. The quality wasn't perfect, but I could see the timestamps in the corner. The first image, my stepfather entering Murphy's bar at 7:43 p.m. The second, the victim walking toward the restroom at 7:51. The third, my stepfather again, slipping through the same hallway toward the bathroom. Timestamp 7:53. He was inside before the fight, before anyone claimed to see my dad involved. He said he wasn't there until after, I whispered. I know, he replied. He told police he arrived just as the fight broke out. The bouncer backed that up. Then he lied. He nodded. I looked closer at the photos. In the first, he wore the same dark gray jacket he used to wear around our house. In the third, his face was partially turned. No smile, just focus. Where did you get this? The woman I told you about. She knew someone who bartended there back then. Turns out the bar never replaced the original security setup. They keep footage backed up to a local server. Legally, they're not supposed to keep it that long, but they forgot to wipe the drive. And no one ever asked to see it? Police said the angle didn't show the fight clearly, so it wasn't prioritized. But the hallway? That wasn't about the fight. That was before. What about the bartender? He hesitated. He said he didn't remember anything specific. Claimed he was too busy. But when pressed, he admitted someone matching your stepfather's description was sitting at the bar before your dad arrived. My throat tightened. Is he willing to say that officially? Not yet. But we're working on it. There's more. He pulled out another slip of paper. Security logs from the back parking lot. Your dad's truck came in at 8:02. But guess who pulled in at 7:40 and left at 8:05 just before police were called? I didn't answer. He looked at me. I'm guessing you already know. My fingers gripped the edge of the bench. He was already there. He followed the victim, went into the hallway right before the body was found, then left before the fight even escalated. It doesn't prove he did it, I said. No, but it proves he lied. And that puts doubt on everything he said about that night. We sat in silence for a few seconds while traffic buzzed in the distance. Somewhere across the street, a dog barked. He knows I'm onto him, I said. He searched my room again. Said I needed to be handled. They're sending me away next week. Out of state. Someplace in the mountains. His voice was steady. Then we need to move faster. I handed him a flash drive. The backup from the toilet tank. The same one I'd transferred the photos and journal entries to. I'd made 2 copies. One would stay hidden in the soles of my old sneakers. This one was for him. Everything's on there. He nodded and slipped it into his jacket pocket. I'm talking to someone about getting a lawyer. Someone who'll go over the original case files. There were inconsistencies no one looked at the first time. Things that got buried under assumptions. Do we have time? He glanced at his watch. We've got days, maybe less. But we've got more than we had yesterday. My eyes burned, but I blinked the tears back. I can't let him win. You won't. I stood, pulling my hood back up. Don't contact me unless it's urgent. If they find that phone, I know. I turned to walk away but stopped. Why did he hate my dad so much? He looked at me carefully. Your dad once caught him stealing from a job site. Told him if he ever showed up again, he'd call the cops. That was years ago. But people like that don't forget. I nodded, jaw clenched. They pretend they're victims, I said. But they're just waiting for the right moment. He didn't argue. I crossed the street, cut through the alley, and made my way back toward the library. When I got home, he was sitting on the couch with my mom, both pretending everything was normal. She was laughing at something on TV. His arm was draped behind her like he belonged there. I went upstairs, closed the doorless frame of my room, and sat on the floor. I opened the new phone. One message had come in during the walk home. We're getting close. Don't stop now. I stared at the words for a long time. For the first time in months, I believed them. The plan came together faster than I expected. All it took was a lie, a quiet one. I told him a friend from school was dropping off a textbook. Nothing suspicious, just a quick exchange on the porch. He barely looked up from his phone. I sent a message from the hidden device. 5 minutes. Bring your phone. Mic on. Don't knock. She replied with a thumbs up. We'd practiced the setup days ago. She'd come to the door, say we needed to talk privately, and I'd walk her around to the side of the house where the backyard was mostly hidden. Her phone would be in her back pocket, already recording. He'd follow. He always did. I watched the clock. When she rang the bell, I opened the door fast, smiling like everything was normal. She followed the cue perfectly. Can we talk for a sec? She said. Outside? I nodded, loud enough for him to hear from the living room. Yeah, just a minute. We stepped out, walked past the porch, through the gate, and into the backyard. There was no fence between our yard and the woods beyond, just a thin tree line and a broken bench. I sat on the bench like I'd done 100 times before. She pretended to cry. That wasn't part of the plan, but it worked. I heard the screen door creak, footsteps on gravel. Then he was there. I felt him before I saw him. Everything okay out here? He asked, voice too smooth. She stood up fast, wiping her eyes. I should go. He watched her walk away without saying a word, then turned to me. You gonna tell me what that was about? I didn't answer, just stared down at my hands. He took a step closer. You better not be pulling any more stunts. I've been patient. I've let things slide, but we're done playing now. I waited, silent. That always made him talk more. You think you're clever? He said, with your sad eyes and your little secrets. You think people believe you? But they don't. Nobody does. He sat beside me, too close. You know what your dad was? A hot-headed loser. Always has been. I looked up at him. Let the disgust show, just a little. You planned it, didn't you? I said. He smirked. Planned what? That night. The bar. The fight. He didn't answer right away. Then he leaned back and said, Doesn't matter now. It matters to me. He chuckled. You want a story? Fine. I didn't move, didn't blink. I just let him talk. I was already there when he walked in. He didn't see me. The other guy didn't either. All it took was a little push. A word in the right ear, a little heat. His voice lowered. I waited by the bathrooms. I knew that guy, the one who died, liked to run his mouth when he was drunk. All I had to do was make it look like your dad snapped. Same jacket, same build. It's not hard when people already expect violence. I swallowed hard. You killed him. He smiled. Technically, I bumped into him. He slipped, cracked his head. Tragic accident, right? He looked at me. But your dad was the one who punched him earlier. All I had to do was whisper to the bouncer, say I saw the whole thing. They believed it. So did the cops. Case closed. I forced myself to stay still. Why? He shrugged. Your mom was already mine. He just didn't know it yet. And I wasn't gonna let him ruin that. My nails dug into my palm. You ruined my life. He leaned forward. I fixed your life. Your dad was a time bomb. I did you a favor. You'll see that someday. I stood slowly. He didn't stop me. As I walked toward the house, I felt the phone vibrate once in my pocket, the signal that the recording had saved and uploaded. Inside, my mom was at the sink washing a glass. She looked up when I walked in. "Everything okay?" she asked. He came in behind me. "Yeah," he said. "Just clearing the air." She smiled at him. I didn't respond. I went upstairs and closed the doorless frame behind me like always. Sat on the floor, pulled out the second phone. The audio file was already there. 43 minutes long. I played back the last part, just loud enough for myself. Same jacket, same build. All I had to do was whisper to the bouncer. They believed it. Then I saved it again. One copy to the cloud, one to the USB, one to the hidden drive inside my shoe sole. I messaged the friend. "Got it. Clear audio. You're a lifesaver." She replied instantly. "We're gonna end this." I stared at the screen until it blurred. He had said everything. His own words, his own voice. No denying it, no escaping it. And this time, I wasn't alone. I was going to burn him to the ground, without ever touching a match. The house was silent the next morning. Too silent. I sat at the kitchen table staring at a bowl of cereal I didn't plan to eat. He was out running, his usual Saturday routine. My mom was folding laundry on the couch, the TV playing some home makeover show she wasn't watching. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One word. "Ready?" I stood up. "Hey," I said casually. "Can I show you something?" She glanced over, distracted. "What is it?" I crossed the room and handed her the phone. The screen already displayed the audio file, the one labeled backyard recording. She looked at me, confused. "What is this?" "Just listen." I pressed play before she could ask again. His voice came through the speaker clearly. Too clearly. "You want a story? Fine." I was already there when he walked in. The other guy didn't even see me. All it took was a little push, a word in the right ear. I watched her face. At first, she didn't react, just blinked. Then her brows pulled together like she was trying to interpret a foreign language. The next line hit harder. "Technically, I bumped into him. He slipped, cracked his head. Tragic accident, right?" She froze. "Your dad was the one who punched him earlier. All I had to do was whisper to the bouncer. They believed it. So did the cops. Case closed." Her hands began to shake. The phone dropped into her lap. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Where did you get this?" "I recorded it. Yesterday. After he followed me outside." "You—" I didn't let her finish. "I have more. I have his face on the security cameras at the bar. I have journal pages from Dad, dated before he was arrested. I have a pawn shop receipt proving he was already around before the fight ever happened. And I have 2 witnesses ready to talk." She looked away like she needed to reset the entire conversation in her head. "You're lying." "I'm not." Her mouth opened, then closed again. You manipulated this. You edited?" "No." That's his voice, every word. I didn't change a thing." She stood up too fast, her breath catching. "I can't." She looked toward the door. "He said your father?" "He lied. You believed the wrong person." Silence. Long, painful silence. Then she sank back onto the couch and covered her mouth with her hand. I waited, let her sit in it. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin. "He told me. I was safe with him. He said he'd protect us. He said your father. He said whatever he had to." She nodded slowly. "Where is he now?" "Out. Probably thinks I'm still asleep." She stood suddenly and walked to the sink like she needed something to do with her hand. She rinsed a glass she'd already cleaned, then slammed it into the drying rack hard enough to crack. "I let him into this house. You didn't want to be alone." She turned sharply. No, don't make excuses for me. I chose him." She sat down again, looked straight into my eyes. "You said something once. That he made your skin crawl." I didn't respond. She nodded, like the truth was finally burning through the fog. I didn't listen. "No," I said softly. "You didn't." We both jumped at the sound of the front door unlocking. I grabbed the phone and pulled up the audio again, lowered the volume, hit play. He walked in like nothing had changed, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door and kicked off his shoes. "Morning," he said casually, wiping sweat from his forehead. She didn't answer. He paused. "Everything okay?" She stood, still holding the phone. His smile faded. "What's going on?" She hit pause. He knew, instantly. "Where did you get that?" "I should ask you the same." His expression cracked. Just a second. Then the charm snapped back into place. "Baby, that's not what it sounds like. She's twisting it. You know how she is." "I heard every word," she said. "You planned it. You framed him. His jaw tensed. You don't know what you're talking about. She has proof. Her dad was violent, he snapped. He always was. Everyone knew it. She has you on tape, saying you killed that man, that you set him up. He turned to me then, eyes dark. You think anyone's gonna believe a brat like you over me? I don't need them to believe me, I said. I just need them to hear you. He stared for a long time, then laughed. Dry, cold, fine. You want to ruin your mother's life? You think dragging this all out will help anyone? Be my guest. She stepped forward. You need to leave. What? Now. You're not serious. I want you out of this house, today. His eyes darted between us, then narrowed. You think this ends here? You think cops are going to care about some recording from a kid? You have no idea what She grabbed her keys. If you don't leave now, I will call the police myself. Something in her voice must have convinced him. He scoffed, picked up his shoes, slammed the door on the way out. Neither of us moved for a long time. Then she turned to me, voice shaking. We need to go. Now, with all of it. Every file, every copy, every note. We're taking it to the police. I nodded once. We packed everything. The USB, the backup phone, the folder from the bar, printouts of the journal entries, copies of the emails. An hour later, we sat in the small interview room of the precinct, and this time, when I told them what happened, someone listened. It only took 48 hours. The detective called my mom on a Wednesday evening, voice clipped and professional, asking us to come down to the station again. This time, they didn't ask questions. They just told us what was happening. They had reviewed the full recording, compared it with the time-stamped footage from Murphy's bar, the journal entries, the pawn receipt, the testimony from the bartender, and it was enough. He was arrested the next morning, at our house. I watched from the upstairs window as 2 officers placed him in handcuffs right in our driveway. He didn't fight, didn't yell, just laughed under his breath as they read him his rights, like he still didn't believe this was happening, like he thought he'd get out of it. By noon, his mugshot was online. By Friday, the charges were formal: obstruction of justice, manipulation of a crime scene, and second-degree murder. They added counts of perjury and intimidation of a minor. The prosecutor said they were still gathering everything, but it was enough. That same day, my dad walked out of county jail. The news didn't show it. No cameras, no reporters, just the slam of a metal gate, a paper bag with his belongings, and a slow, steady walk into the sunlight. He looked thinner, paler. His beard was fuller and patchy, but his eyes, those hadn't changed. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just pulled me into his chest and held me like something that had almost been taken away for good. I knew you'd figure it out, he whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He stayed with the friend who helped me for a few weeks, said he needed space before thinking about what came next. My mom didn't ask to see him. She barely left her room after the arrest. For days, she didn't talk much. I didn't push. Eventually, she said, I didn't want to know the truth. That's not the same as not knowing it. I didn't argue. Some truths don't deserve forgiveness. The trial began 2 months later. I wasn't required to testify, not technically, but I insisted. They tried to prepare me, rehearsed questions, reviewed statements, but nothing really prepared me for sitting in that chair, under the lights, with him sitting 10 feet away in a suit that didn't fit, and a smirk that hadn't faded. I took the oath, sat up straight, and told the court everything. How he moved into our house days after my dad was arrested. How he tried to control everything. My space, my voice, my mother. How he read my letters. How he threatened me. How he confessed to the crime behind our house, not knowing a phone was recording every word. I looked him in the eye as I said it. He thought no one would believe me. He told me that, over and over. But I didn't need to be believed. I just needed people to listen. His lawyer objected twice. The judge overruled both. When I stepped down, my knees were shaking, but I walked past him without flinching. The prosecution had built a solid case. They presented everything: the footage, the confessions, the timeline inconsistencies. They even brought in a forensic analyst to confirm that the scene at the bar didn't align with the story given at the time of arrest, the angle of impact, the blood spatter, the delay in calling 911. But what changed everything was what came after. 3 other women came forward, not about murder, but about coercion, abuse, psychological control. One was an ex-girlfriend who said he stalked her for months after she tried to leave. Another was a co-worker who claimed he threatened her after she rejected him. The last was a former tenant who had filed a restraining order he violated. But the case was dropped when she moved away. All of it had been buried. All of it was now in the open. He didn't smile after that. His defense fell apart. The verdict came after 6 days of testimony. Guilty, on all counts. Sentenced to life in prison, no chance of parole before 40 years. I was in the courtroom when they took him away. He didn't look at me, but I looked at him. And I didn't feel fear, just finality. Afterward, reporters tried to reach out. Our front door stayed locked. I didn't want headlines. I didn't want interviews. I didn't want anyone twisting the story into something it wasn't. I just wanted to breathe again. One night, weeks after the trial, my dad and I sat on the hood of his friend's truck watching the sky. "You saved my life," he said. "No," I replied. "You saved mine first." We didn't talk about what came next. Not yet. But we both knew something had shifted. The worst was behind us. But the healing, that was only just beginning. The house we moved into was small, just 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, and wallpaper that peeled a little at the edges. But it was quiet. No yelling, no slamming doors, no locks removed from my room. Just me and my dad, learning how to live again. He got a job at an auto shop a few towns over. Not full-time yet. He was still figuring things out. Some days he didn't talk much. Others, he told me stories about engines and road trips he'd taken in his 20s. I let him talk. Sometimes I just listened. Sometimes I laughed. We weren't trying to be who we were before. We were just trying to be something new. I went back to school a month after the trial ended. The principal offered to give me extra time to catch up, but I said no. I didn't want special treatment. I just wanted normal, routine, math homework, hallway noise, whispered drama between classes. For once, I was glad to be invisible. I started therapy. At first, I hated it. The woman they matched me with had this soft voice and too many pillows in her office. She said things like safe space and how does that make you feel? But then one day, after sitting in silence for almost the whole session, I asked her if people like him always look normal on the outside. She didn't answer with a definition. She said, "That's why they're dangerous." And something in me unlocked. I kept going. My mom called twice after the verdict. Once to ask if I was okay. Once to say she was sorry. I didn't answer either time. She sent a letter, handwritten on lined paper. The handwriting was shaky, like she hadn't picked up a pen in years. She said she was in therapy, that she couldn't forgive herself for what happened, that she understood if I never wanted to see her again. She ended it with, "I thought I was building a life, but I was just hiding inside a lie." I didn't write back. I'm not angry the way I thought I'd be, but I'm not ready for her either. Sometimes silence is the most honest boundary you can set. The girl I was a year ago feels like someone else. Someone smaller, someone quieter. I still see her sometimes, in mirrors, in dreams, but she doesn't scare me anymore. She got me through it. She survived. Now it's my turn to live. When people ask what happened, I don't lie. I don't tell the whole thing either. I just say, it's a long story, but it made me stronger. Most people nod and move on. A few don't. I like those people. The best friend of my dad, the one who helped me, comes by sometimes. He brings burgers or pizza and always leaves with a pat on the back like he doesn't want to make things awkward. He told me once, "You were the only one who kept your head when the rest of us lost ours." I didn't know how to respond to that. Still don't, but I'll never forget what he did. The friend who helped me record the confession, she's still my friend. We don't talk about it much. I think it scares her in a way. How close she came to being part of something much darker. But we're different now. Closer. She trusts me. I trust her. Trust. That's enough. Sometimes I think about the night I played that recording for my mom. The moment everything broke open. I used to replay it in my head, word for word, over and over. But now I let it sit in the past. It served its purpose. It set me free. I've decided what I want to do with my life. It's not because someone told me I should. It's because I've seen what happens when people don't believe the ones they should have protected. When evidence gets buried. When the right questions aren't asked. I want to be someone who asks those questions. I've started reading about law. Real law, not the kind from TV dramas. I'm taking notes. Looking up scholarships. Planning. It's still far off, but it feels real in a way nothing ever has. My dad says he's proud of me. He doesn't say it all the time. But when he does, I believe him. I used to think surviving something like this would make me feel powerful, or broken, or bitter. But mostly I just feel clear. I know who I am now, and no one gets to rewrite that again.